Hello and welcome back to the DRH show. Today we are excited to have an exceptional individual in the world of recovery and personal transformation. He isn't just a recovery coach and motivational speaker, he's also an accomplished actor with notable roles in iconic films and musicals. With over 37 years of sobriety, he has dedicated his life to helping others through their recovery journeys. He developed his pioneering recovery skills program in 1989 and has since become known as the grandfather of UK recovery coaches. His unique workshops have reached audiences in 7 countries and continue to make an impact. David Charkham, thanks for joining us today.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm good, and thanks for lovely to see you, David. Yes, we have to acknowledge that we first met at Men's radio station a few years ago. But
That's right.
as I've mentioned, you've made significant strides in the world of recovery and rehabilitation. So, what made you get into this line of work initially? So, tell us about your background, your trajectory in life, and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Okay, well, that's a lot. Okay, so I got into this purely by accident, Dennis. I wasn't planning when I ended up in rehab in 1986 as a rather cracked or broken actor. Had hit rock bottom from excess. Um, I thought I'd go to rehab, clean up my act, and get my career back. And I had a very rude awakening. I mean, I talk lightly about going to rehab, but I'd blown it. I'd destroyed my career, and I'm of that generation of the 60s, 1960s generation, and I was. It's not often spoken about, but I was the first generation of Englishmen that didn't go into wasn't conscripted by the military. All men until early 60s went into the army or the navy for some time. So I was that first generation of youth who were allowed to express ourselves. It wasn't kind of contained by military service, and I'm part of that explosion. So naturally, there was music, there was fashion, there was style, there was the voice of youth was suddenly allowed to be heard, and it all worked very well for me. I didn't wake up. I don't think I was born a drug addict or an alcoholic. In my teens, I was an impressionable kid, and my heroes got high. So I thought if it was good enough for them, I'll try it. So I did. I started getting high, like my contemporaries in '65, where I was using the substance, but then years later, I'm poured into a rehab, which I should mention, Cloud's House in England in 1986. When I got there, it was using me, and I crossed that invisible line. And as is often the case, the people that loved me, that were around me, knew it before I did. So I go into rehab, and they tell me, there is a life possible without a drink or a drug. And they tell me, people might just like you for being you, not because they see you on the telly. And you might get well if you get honest. So that was a major, major shock after the shock of having I call it my chemical duvet. I'm detox from drink, I'm detox from drugs, and it's just David. And all the fancy websites of treatment centers around the world should have a health warning, not quite like a packet of cigarettes, but it should say, good news about recovery is you get your feelings back. The bad news about recovery is you get your feelings back. So I had to learn to deal with life and feelings, good, bad, and ugly, without my chemical crutch. So I do that, come out of rehab and think, sure, I'll get the old career back. And that didn't happen. And boy, oh boy, was I angry. So out of left field, now, if you think back, or one thing, I think back 38 years ago, 1986, if you were a drama therapist, a dance therapist, a speech therapist, an acupuncturist, shiatsu, this was all like witch doctor stuff in England in those days. But there was one art therapist, and she knew that I'd been an actor. She knew that I was a recovering addict, And she knew, because I'd been an actor, that I had good communication skills. And she opened the first men's halfway house in London for men coming out of rehab. And not a lot is spoken about the shock of leaving treatment, your treatment bubble, and coming back to the real world. And so I started a group to help people merge gently back into the real world without their chemical blanket. And that was called David Charkham's Recovery Skills. So that's how my new career started. Next question.
That's really a good background on how this lead up to your career in the cabin, which is interestingly the leading rehab center in Thailand. But could you tell us more about the offerings? And also, I understand, David, you're the Goodwill ambassador. So
Yes.
what does your role entail? Is it more of the marketing side?
Well, not so much, really. It's a privilege. I've always had a fondness for Thailand, the Thai people, Buddhism, that way of life. And I've been fortunate enough to be involved with the rehab movement, particularly in northern Thailand, in Chiang Mai, for some years. And I was approached by the cabin, and I was really impressed. But people do approach me to ambassador or represent them. But I always say, you know, the benchmark for me is, would I send a relative to a place like that? And the cabin is exceptional. It's a cabin center. It's cabin wellness, and it's a specialized set of programs for those suffering from different mental health disorders. It was known as addiction, but it's the brainchild of the Cabin Group, which is a mission-driven organization. It strives to help individuals overcome challenges and achieve their full potential. And that's what we want to do that. And I like it, the fact that it's a balanced approach, and it combines logical thinking, emotional connection, and action, which can lead to overall positive change. Because as I said earlier, it's not just about stopping drinking or stopping taking the drug. So the therapists are skilled. I've met them. I've even lectured on some of the courses they qualified, and they're dedicated. So it's a journey, in a nutshell, towards a meaningful and fulfilling life. So it's proven. They've had, I think, 5,000 patients over the years. It's covers PTS, depression, anxiety, codependency. So that's the sort of the technical bit, the caring treatment side, but it's on a beautiful side. It's the secluded riverside. It's in the foothills of northern Thailand. It's not like the madness of Bangkok. So why would people want to go there from their homes? I think to get away, to have time to slow down, to have time to. I mean, I'm quite big on digital detoxes, so quite nice to get away. But it's modern thinking. It's not too restrictive. It's not. It's wellness, I think, is probably the best word. Now, I'm looking at some of their write-ups, and someone's actually called it the Betty Ford of Asia, which Betty Ford was the original benchmark of 12-step treatment centers in America. But I think that it's the fact that it's small, that it's intimate, and the ratio of therapists to counselors is very, very high. So, need I go on? I could.
Yeah, I was just because obviously, needless to say, Thailand is a great place, and you mentioned that kind of, especially northern northern Thailand in Chiang Mai, is more peaceful compared to Bangkok. But have you encountered any challenges while working internationally, and how have you overcome them? And could you also talk a bit more about the recovery skills program that you've developed in 1989? Do you kind of like integrate that with what you're doing with the cabin right now?
Absolutely. If I'm involved, wherever I'm involved, I always, there's the ambassadorial role and the making the public appearances. But I always, it works both ways. I do my workshop, life skills, recovery skills workshop at the centre, because then I get a double taste of not just, oh, this is the centre and those are the clients. I'm in a group with them. and stuff flows and feedback comes. So the essence of my workshops, now in their third decade, is quite simple, and that is, I'm looking to see where the camera is. Oh, there it is. Now that you've stopped, how are you going to stay stopped? That's what it's all about. Because if you think about it, most people can stop if they're in a contained environment. And Chiang Mai, the cabin, it's a beautiful environment. But ultimately, you're going to come back to London or New York or Dubai or Brighton or Kuala Lumpur. And those cities aren't all there. It's like the shock for me when I left my rehab. I came back to London. I lived right in the middle near Victoria. And Pimlico was my area. And the whole area didn't ground to a halt because David Charkham stopped getting high and getting drunk. It was a bit of a shock. So I needed skills, life skills. I needed to know how to deal with life. Also, I needed to know, how much do I tell other people? I needed to practice the word no. I hadn't used the word no for decades. I had to understand the practicalities of what I call thinking with my feet. It was not a good idea to hang around to the end with a load of people getting high. Well, I have to accept there are millions of people in the world who are not addicts that can drink socially and it doesn't screw up their life. But for me, a recovering alcoholic addict, in the early days, it was not good to be around drinking drugs. Surprise, surprise. So in my group, how I explain this, I did a group this week, and I asked the clients in my group to visualize a picture of what is when a baby first goes into the water. What's on their arms? Dennis, what's on their arms when a baby goes into the water for the first time?
They've got a floater.
Exactly, floaters. Now, when a kid gets their first bicycle, what's on the back wheels of that first bicycle?
Like the back wheel, that's to support them.
Stabilizers. You just
Yeah.
sum the whole thing up. As long as people remember when they leave the protective bubble of treatment that they're fragile, they're wet behind the ears. This is not in being rude, but you're still in blinking nappies. And as long as you remember, they remember how vulnerable you are, it will be all right. But do not try it on your own because it won't work. We need others. We need a world. We need connections in recovery, not the whole world, but we need others who've gone down the path before us. For me, old-fashioned saying, but it's described as a therapeutic value of one alcoholic addict sharing their experience with another is without parallel. That's what helped me. I mean, yes, I integrated with the real world, but I needed ongoing support, aftercare. And for many, the fellowships work. Not for everybody, but it worked. And that's helped me an awful lot. Now, someone might say, oh, David Charkham, he can't still be going to those support groups 38 years on. And because I say, I'm not going for my drinking, I'm going for my thinking. I need to be reminded that I'm not the only nut in the box. So it's helping people realize that life ain't going to be easy peasy when you walk out. It's going to be light. Sorry, I'm banging on, Dennis. You got another question?
No, I was just going to ask you because so some people might not be familiar about this, but throughout your career, you've been affectionately known as the rock and roll recovery coach. So tell us about the story behind that.
Okay. Yeah, the rock and roll recovery coach, that title came from, because yes, I was in the limelight. I was a child actor. I was quite popular, and I did some movies and TV and stuff, but I also did some kind of rock musicals, and also I was in a band. And I suppose when I got into recovery, people started to know that when I was in recovery, I did recovery workshops, but also I'd been in the entertainment business, and I kind of understood it. Now, really, there's nothing they called it the mood altering subject of fame, the mood altering effect of fame. And because people suffer from a mood altering effect of fame, some more than others, if people got into trouble and they were in rehab and they needed to leave rehab and go on the road, somebody approached me. They said, you've been there, you've done that. And I think also they knew I wasn't after their artist's fame. I wasn't waiting for any showbiz stardust to sprinkle on me and get the name of David Charkham up in lights. So I was no threat. I was very happy just to be there quietly in the background, and that may be organising support groups before a show, after a show, helping an artist kind of talk them down from the high. I mean, the natural high of entertaining hundreds of thousands of people and the adulation, or indeed in some cases, and I travelled the world with some high profile artists, and it could be just supporting them in that way, or for some, if they were really feeling uncomfortable, I would stand at the side of the stage out of sight, but they know I was in their peripheral vision as what I suppose is known as a safe pair of hands. So that's the origin. And I grandfather, I am an old fart. So that's grandfather, but I started doing this 30 years ago.
Mm.
But mind you, most of the artists that I work with, I don't think those tours were sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was more oxygen tanks and hair dye.
Another thing, David, is I understand that the author, Mark Billingham, chose to base the lead character in his book, Die of Shame, based on you. So tell us about that. What influenced Billingham?
Do you know, I pulled it off the shelf anyway. I made the mistake of tidying, so I can't find it. But my phone's resting on it. I'd like to say it's not actually about me, but I'm the main character. But if the book was about me, the book's about a murder, so I haven't killed anyone. Mind you, some of my theatrical reviews might have been murder, but anyway, Mark Billingham, who's a very popular crime writer, wanted to write a book about an aftercare group for people who come out of rehab with an aftercare, and in the book, ultimately, one of that aftercare group gets murdered. And I thought about this question. I thought, why would he approach me? I think he wanted to describe a therapist, but with a bit of a twist. So yes, I had a therapist, and actually there was another colleague of mine who was a pure therapist, not a recovery coach as such, more of an academic, an excellent therapist. I think he wanted to sprinkle the character with more interest. When you introduce the sort of the rock and roll sober coach, I think it sort of gave the character a bit more meatiness. But so that's a bit about the character. But one of the other reasons I got that title, and I suppose became successful, is I was able to remain grounded. And it can turn your head with the I guess the private jets and the presidential suites. But what kept my feet on the ground is, and I don't know if you know this, Dennis, I spent 22 years working for the NHS in England, and that was, street homeless addicts off the streets of Paddington, central London. And on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'd be working with them in Paddington. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, yes, I might be on a private jet with a superstar. So it gave me a very good grounding. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah. I also, aside from that, by the way, I'll put the link to that book. Sounds interesting. But I was just going to ask you, David, because aside from you work with the Cabin, your work also extends with the Outside Edge Theatre Company. So how are you involved with this company?
Oh, well, thank you for asking that. And Outside Edge is a non-profit charity, basically for anyone who feels this is not join the Outside Edge and become a famous actor. This is anyone, you see, addicts, alcoholics, people with mental health issues, they're often very talented, but their condition has suppressed their talent. And the Outside Edge is a place for anyone to drop in free of charge, live or on Zoom, to join their theatre skills workshop, their writing workshops, their women's creative groups. They do all sorts of things. And it took 20 years to get this off the ground. I mean, talk about hand to mouth. It's been goodwill and the support of some fantastic patrons that help put it on the map. And I'm very privileged that Jimmy Page, Pierce Brosnan, and Mark Rylance believed in it, saw it, got involved, put their names to it and supported it, and they've been fantastic. And we want people to know, thank you for mentioning it. So it's Outside Edge. You'll put a link on.
Yeah.
So it's about, you see, bottom line, it's not so, there's the performing skills, but it's about confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're in the grip of addiction, you lose your confidence, you lose your self-worth, you lose self-respect. And it's a learning to become a full human being again. So yes, please look it up. Anyone listening to it, and it's led by a great team. Matt Steinberg is the director, and I'm sure you get all sorts of support. And what is also interesting, professionals, whether they're from Guildhall or West End Productions, they come and they give their time to help people be creative. So that's the Outside Edge.
And of course, you've got lots of things going on, David, but how do you keep yourself motivated and continue to innovate in your approach to recovery coaching? Because, this is a very dynamic field, lots of things going on. We have AI now. We don't know how you can integrate that with recovery coaching. So how do you keep on evolving?
Well, that's a really good question. I haven't thought about AI recovery coaching. With the words, you see, the words can all be written down, and they be AI'd, and you can have a creative person, but you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't hear it breathe. I need to be present. I mean, I do stuff on Zoom, but it works. I need to see the whites of my clients' eyes for it to work. So I don't know the future. I mean, I'm a septuagenarian, Dennis. For goodness sake, what happened? I had all my own teeth and long hair when this started.
Yeah, but you're very dynamic. But I think what people might want to have as a bit of a takeaway here is they want to hear some advice when it comes to they suspect that their loved one might need help with addiction. So could you tell us some telltale signs and what should they do?
Yes, I can indeed, and there's a wonderful support network for parents or loved ones or partners or indeed business colleagues that they have their support groups for them, because if you suspect a loved one's in trouble, you never quite know what's going to happen when you confront them, if you choose to confront them. I mean, one of my strap lines, I've got some things on Vimeo, Vimeo. There's a couple of film clips. One that I'm particularly proud of, and it's just like a kind of fireside chat, but I'm walking around the garden just chatting. But basically, it's like I'm asking the question, is your drinking costing you more than money? What sort of impact? What's the quality of your life like? What's your social life like? How much do you drink? How often do you drink? It's just general questions. As I say, the support fellowships are a great place to start. There's a lot of information online. But in reality, my work is, I would say that I can carry the message, but I can't carry the addict. Because I have been in those sober companion roles. There may be, say, a management or a record company that or an agent who wants their artist who's really successful to keep performing well. And they want the artist to stop. Or maybe the parents want their child to stop. But if they're not ready, that's the challenge. That's the challenge. It's said you need to hit a real rock bottom before the penny will drop. So there's a lot more out there than there was. There's a lot of places to go for reflection on this, unlike when I was in early recovery. So I asked the parents to go online and look for help of loved ones of addicts or alcoholics. That's a general outline. And also, bottom line is looking at that loved one and ask them if they had enough. Because I tried before. I hadn't had enough, actually, Dennis, but I might tell you I had, just to get you off my back for a while. Ultimately, I go into situations or rehabs or counselling with one hand up and say, look, I'm David Charkham, I'm an addict and I need help. Because it's only when I went,
I'm David Charkham. I'm an addict and I need help. When I was able to surrender with both hands, did it start to shift?
Absolutely. Now, thanks for those tips and also for giving us sort of an overview with what you do with the cabin. Now, I'd like to wrap this up with some quick, far, lighthearted questions, just so we can learn more about you. So the first question is, what were you afraid of as a child?
Maybe being left alone.
Mm-hmm.
I was a great seeker of approval. I wanted your attention. Hasn't changed, as you can see, but I was a chronic attention seeker. So I suppose I was afraid of being ignored.
Mm-hmm. And what is your favorite word in another language?
Oh my God. My fang chu. My fang chi. You know what
What
that
does that
is?
mean?
It means toothpick in Thai.
Okay. That's interesting. I would imagine that it would come from Thailand because
I thought you were going to say je t'adore or something like that.
no, I don't speak French. I know a bit of Thai other than Sawadee Cup and Kapun Cup. But
Okay.
David, if you haven't been a recovery coach, what would you have pursued in your life?
Oh my goodness. Well, I would have wanted to be an actor again, but I'd missed the boat as an actor. Do you know, I have no idea. I didn't plan to be doing this. I was always a performer. I don't know. I haven't got an answer for that one. You've stumped me, Dennis.
You probably, I could see, because you said that you'd love the attention. You'd probably be like CEO, something like managing a big company.
I thought you were going to say politician. Definitely not. No.
Okay. And David, finally, the floor is all yours. What should people take away from today's conversation?
Well, I think really is that, if you're worried, give yourself a break.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just if it's becoming regular use of substances and they're not working anymore, maybe try not doing it for 2 or 3 days. And yes, recovery has saved and changed my life. And in 30 years, thousands and thousands of people I've watched come from dark places and step into the light. That continues to inspire me and encourage me. You're worth better. You're worth better than that. You deserve better. And we only get one life. So one day at a time.
And there's definitely resources out there, and of course the importance of support system. You mentioned the role of family and role of organizations such as the cabin. Well, David, as we continue to address the complexities of modern life, your expertise and perspectives are incredibly vital. David Charkham, it's been a privilege having you here with us on the DRH show, and I look forward to hearing more about your work.
Lovely to see you again, Dennis. Bye.